Paul's back. That's great. Uh, and uh, I guess none of us need to know what Paul's about and what he's been doing. Um, or if there's anything new, I'd like to hear about it. But uh, the the widening of the perspective of unity from Paul's metaphysics to just having uh, a different interpretation to some degree of what has always been sort of the accepted way. Paul has revolutionized that for us, and I I love it. I'm so thankful for you to keep us on the edge, I guess. Yeah. So, Dr. Hasselbeck, take it away.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yeah. I think with this group, I think Paul is just fine. Everyone pretty much
All
knows
right.
my gig.
Yes, they do.
I am always happy to be with you. And I think the last time I was with you all, I did a talk on joy, and that was eh, it was live, actually, wasn't it? Last time I saw you all. I'm always simply happy to be with you. I'm always happy to share my perspective. I should precede this with IMO, in my opinion. So I'm giving you my opinion, and you can take it or leave it. And I hope you'll take at least part of it. So let me see if I get my slides up and going. Let's see how I do here, Kyle. Okay, so you're seeing my one slide, Center for Universal Oneness, right? So thank you for inviting me. I always like to say yes to this group, and it's really fun because what I'm looking at now on my screen is my slide setup, and I get to see Susan and Dennis at the top of my screen. So hi Susan, hi Dennis, good to see you. And I hope all is going well with you. All right. So thank you, Center for Universal Oneness, for inviting me. Uh, Keep your cell phone out, but make sure it's silent. And why do you want the cell phone out is because there might be slides of talks or visuals that you might want to keep. So sit back and relax. And this is my information. This may be a slide you want to take a picture in case you want to contact me. So you contact me at alberthasselbeck@gmail.com. And then going up from the bottom, my podcast is metaphysicalromp2.com. And I don't know if you guys have heard this, but uh, we recently checked, and apparently our podcast is number 16 in the world of metaphysical metaphysical podcasts. So maybe you join us sometime. We keep them short, about 20 minutes. We did that so you could listen to them on a drive to work or whatever you're doing. And of course, my website is paulhasselbeck.com. So, of course, you've already heard that the title of this talk is The Joy of Limitation. And in the world of unity, where a long time we used the saying, I am free and unlimited, it might appear as a contradiction. And as I've taught this in the classroom, I get a lot of resistance. It's like we have a allergy in unity to limitation. But yet, everything in the world around us is specific. You're specific. The entire universe operates specifically. So maybe I should have said, or said the title, the joy of specification. Uh, but getting that word out can be a challenge at times. So here we go. Here's the opening affirmation. I am wondrously infinite in finite ways. So wherever you are, you might want to say that out loud or to yourself, maybe holding your hand over your heart. I am wondrously infinite in finite ways. And this is a visualization that I think, at least for me, illustrates it. So we have the infinite unlimited. Our divinity is infinite and unlimited. We have the finite limited, and that's our humanity. So we can say we're fully divine and fully human. And as always, I like to do a little bit at the beginning of my talks so that anybody hearing me for the first time will get the foundation from which I teach. So for me and a lot of Unity people, God is not a being or entity. God does not change, and God is not opposed. And what we mean by that, there's no devil, no opposing force that's seeking to do bad things to you or anyone. And when we talk about the divine, it also is called mind. And by the term mind, we mean God, the universal principle, which includes all principles. So for me, I mostly think of God as principle. God is principle. And then you might think, well, what does that mean, Paul? Well, God is the principle that's made up of faculties and laws. And these faculties and laws are permanent and unchanging because we did say God does not change. So principle doesn't change. So and the faculties and the laws that make up principle, they don't change either. And when I'm thinking of this, I like to remind people that the immutable and unchanging laws of the natural world are spiritual laws. I put them in the same basket as spiritual laws. So here's a tip. The words principle and power, as in 12 powers, and divine idea are synonyms of each other. And these words tripped me up when I was studying, when I first into Unity, because I thought they were distinct and different things. And it turns out they're pretty much the same. And so this is a quote from Eric Butterworth, one of my favorite Unity writers. And he said, God is spirit, present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. But remember, we just defined God as principle. So we would say principle is present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. Now, let's take a deep breath because we don't want to rush on. So if we think about this, one of the ways we could say this, but it's not precise, and that is that principle is present in its entirety at every cell of my body. Principle is present in its entirety at every cell in my body. And then Charles said in an unpublished workers talk, if you can conceive that all that mind, or if you can conceive that all that power is right at hand for your use, all ideas or principles can be grasped and used by you. So see, the trick is you got to know what principles or divine ideas or powers are available to you. And if you can't bring a principle or law or divine idea to mind, you're probably not using it except unconsciously. So, one of my favorite writers is E.V. Ingraham, and he was around at the time Charles Fillmore was talking about the 12 powers. And he said, you already have all the power there is. He went on to say, if you have had the power to demonstrate disease in the face of omnipresent health, poverty in the presence of inexhaustible substance. Now think about that for a moment. That that you can, and you and I do from time to time, manifest or demonstrate disease, even though we know there is the principle of omnipresent health. And even though there is an exhaustible supply of substance, we can and we do demonstrate poverty. And he went on to say, this is all brought about by the formulated thoughts or decrees of the thinking self. And today, I would say the formulated thoughts and feelings of the thinking self. Because today we believe it is our feeling nature that energizes our thoughts. Charles Fillmore said, if we send power out by our thought and word in hate, it destroys. But if we send it out in love, it builds. Now, that's another beautiful thought from Charles Fillmore. And instead of saying we send, what if we put it in the first person? If I send power out by my thought and word and hate, it destroys. But if I send it out in love, it builds. So that demonstrates for you an interesting thing that I do when I'm reading Charles Fillmore. I will often take a quote like this and put it in the first person, because then it seems to land more at the point of me. And then in Atom's Smashing Power of Mind, Charles added this: divine ideas or principles are potential forces waiting to be set in motion through proper formative vehicles. The thinking and feeling faculties in us are such vehicles. So you see, these principles, these divine ideas, these laws simply are. And we are the ones that activate them at the point of our consciousness. So we have infinite, unlimited divine ideas, and we have the finite, limited. And so, how do we go from the infinite to the finite? Well, it's through our thought, feeling, and word. And so now we're going into the subject matter of this talk, the joy of limitation. So one of the laws that Charles Fillmore talked about is the law of expression. And he said in Christian healing, we must learn the law of expression, from the abstract to the concrete, from the formless to the form. And we could say from the unlimited to the limited. So this amazing law really, for me, in very simple terms, encapsulates the thought that when we're thinking, when we're wanting to do something, we usually start with something more abstract, and then the more and more we make it more specific, it becomes more and more possible to do. So we must learn the law of expression, from the abstract to the concrete, from the formless to the form. And this is a way we can manifest it. or at least visualize it. And so we take the abstract and formless in consciousness and we limit it to something concrete and formed or specific and formed. So just a real quick example, there are people going to church all around the country today. However, church is an abstraction. It's it includes many churches. So we don't just go to church on Sunday morning, we go to a specific church. So right here in my own community, there are hundreds of churches. But for me to go to church, I have to have a specific church in mind. So I have to take all the churches that are possible and limit to one church in order for me to go to church. If all of us said, let's go to breakfast together after this presentation, we couldn't get up out of our chairs and actually go someplace until we named a specific restaurant. So in this example, there may be 50 churches, I mean 50 restaurants near us, and we got a specify a specific one so we can actually go to a restaurant. So here it is again. We can take a principle, divine idea, or power, and through thought and feeling and word, we bring it into expression. First, at the level of our physical body, and then through action or manifestation beyond the body. So if you don't like the word limit, maybe you would like to use the word divine or focus or form or refine. If take the word that works just so you have the concept of how it works. So here it is again. We're going from an infinite principle to something very finite. So we already talked about we use thought, feeling, and word, but here's another way of thinking how limitation occurs. So limitation is driven by desire and choice. Desire and choice. So once again, if I desire to go to lunch, that's driving my process to limitate or limit all the possible restaurants to one specific one. And just to throw in a little bit of 12 powers, desire is the power of love, and choice is the power of will. We use our power of will to make choices. And you can probably see the association of choice to the concept that will is our executive faculty. And what does an executive do? It makes choices. So we can say that we use the power of love and the power of choice to drive the limitation process. So if we start out with infinite potential, we can say that includes all ideas. Then we can limit all ideas to one idea, the idea of table. And from there, we can have a specific idea from table and then buy that table or construct that table yourself if you're a carpenter. But you can't get the table if you're staying at the level of all ideas. So here you can see with the same concept that we're going from the unformed to the formed, or we can say from the infinite to the finite. And how do we do that? Through our thought, feeling, and word. So this is another way to show it. infinite, unlimited, that's our divinity. Finite, limited, that's our humanity. And we get from here to there through thought, feeling, and word. And that's all happening in consciousness. Another way to help you see how this is happening, the way we get from the unformed to the formed, is limitation. The way we get from the infinite to the finite is through the process of limitation or specification, if you like that. And so we have an infinite field of potential. In unity, we say that infinite field is mind or God, and it's made up of ideas. And a subset of those ideas is the Christ idea. And then we have the 12 powers, which are 12 divine ideas. And so today, I got that sentence wrong. What are you choosing and desiring to be? Or who are you choosing and desiring to be? So how are you showing up at this moment? Because showing up, you can have an infinite way of showing up, but you have to choose one. You can't show up in a multitude of ways. And so when you get up in the morning and you start thinking, you are already probably kind of mindlessly starting that process of taking the infinite things you can do and making it specific. So the way we want to do this is as consciously as possible. So another way to say it, the way we manifest, the way we demonstrate is by using desire and choice, the powers of love and will to select something specific. And we empower it through our thoughts, our feelings, and our word. And so we could ask, what are you decreeing? What are you decreeing today? So our affirmation, I am wondrously infinite in finite ways, because that's the truth of me, the truth of you. You are wondrously infinite and you are finite. So, how are you choosing to be today? And for me, I find this process to be joyous, the joy of limitation. Thank you for listening.
Uh,
Thank you,
wow.
everybody.
Thank you very much. That is exactly the kind of talk that I was uh, saying that you would give, or how you present things, and it's magnificent
Thank you.
to think about that in a whole different way. Um,
Well, and thank you for doing that. And so I think this is where we go into meditation. Yes.
sure, yeah.
Okay. So right where you are, seated right where you are, make sure you're comfortable. And you might take a few breaths. We breathe in and hold it and release it slowly. Breathe in and release. Breathe in and release. As we settle in together, I invite you to feel gratitude. Gratitude for this now moment. And how this now moment is different from the one before. And this now moment won't be the next one. And let us know together there is only one power and one presence. And that one power is present in its entirety at every point in space, all at the same time. So we could say our divinity is present in every one of our cells. Think about that for a moment. And so you and I are using our divinity, we are using our power, we are using the divine ideas and laws that principle is to manifest our lives. And the wonderful thing about that, you and I get to make the choice. You get to choose how you show up. How are you showing up today? So we know that if we use that power in hate, it destroys. If I use that power in hate, it destroys. If you use that power in hate, it destroys. And at the moment we chose to use it in hate, we could have chosen to use it in love. When we use the power in love, it builds. So are you going to be a destroyer today, or are you going to be a builder? There's no God outside of us that makes us do either. But God is what we use to destroy or build. You are magnificently infinite. And at the same time, you are wondrously finite. In our divinity, we are identical. In our humanity, we are wondrously distinct. Feel the truth of that at the point of view. Who or what are you going to choose to be today? The choice is yours. It always has been, and it always will be. In this community of friends, we celebrate oneness, don't we? While we embrace our differences. And so may we always choose to do it in love. And so it is. Amen.